ourselves and really gauge the guest experience, because that's what we're after. We're after a repeatable guest experience, and knowing how they feel, either positively or negatively, allows us to make better decisions in the restaurant from a staffing level or a training level. And I think it's vital in what we do. And we preach every day about the repeatable guest experience. I don't want a great experience and then an okay experience and then a bad experience.
Right.
It's finding out, it's finding out where our opportunities lie, and being able to identify that helps us step back and say, okay, we need to put some more efforts and training on, the Saturday night crew or what have you. And then, in our industry, the third party delivery has really taken off here in the last few years. And so utilizing that through different third party vendors, to help sales and get feedback on what that segment is doing and is looking like, and who's using it and how they're using it. Because it's still a little bit of an enigma, is how far do you want to go down that road? Is it, does it pay off? Is it something you want to do or not do? And is the guest getting the same experience from a food quality perspective? And once that food leaves your door, you're no longer in control of it. So there are a lot of things along the guest feedback segment that we really try to dive into and get some quality answers on.
That's great. That's great. All right. So now we're going to go to some questions that are a little more kind of, fun questions, I hope. But
okay. All right.
What is your go-to order? What is your go-to order at your local restaurant, your favorite hometown restaurant? And you're in Vegas now, so I don't know if you have a favorite yet, but what is your go-to order at your favorite restaurant?
As you ask that question, what comes to mind? There is, I grew up at a place called Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, a local Midwest tourist attraction.
Yep.
There's a Mexican restaurant out in Osage Beach called Vista Grande, and I can't go to the lake without going to Vista, and I can't go in Vista without getting the chicken chimichanga. It's just, I've ordered chimichangas all over the country, and it's just one of those things that, you grow up with and nothing else compares. And so that's definitely, when I go back to the lake, I hit Vista and I get the chicken chimichanga. So if you're ever at Lake of the Ozarks, you got to do it.
I love it. That's awesome. What do you wish that you knew now, or what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started out? Like, what's the thing that you wish you would have known as a young leader?
Man, you know what? I just got to go back to people. I wish I would have known that I would garner more, have more success, and be more fulfilled if I would focus on others faster. There's a lot of business things that, I wish maybe that I would have learned sooner. But when it comes back to what I wish I'd known when I started out was, the people are the most important thing, that I was in the people business. When I first started, it was a pizza franchise. I thought I was in the pizza business. I thought I was going to be the next, Pizza Hut as far as number of stores and all of those things, but I didn't have the right people. And because I didn't have the right people, I didn't focus on people at all back then because I didn't know to. It didn't turn out as I envisioned it. And so the business data points would be great, but without great people, we're in this race alone, and that's not gonna cut it.
No, it's not. That's great. No, that's really helpful. So what are you curious about right now? When you think about the business, the industry, Vegas, your opportunity, What are you curious about right now?
I think for me, it's where do we go with what's going to happen with the minimum wage and team members, and what does that landscape look like? I think it's, scary for all of us.
Absolutely.
You've got the McDonald's coming out with the order boards in the lobby, and are we going to get to a point where we can't afford to have cashiers and that guest interaction that I think is so vital in providing that guest experience? And it's we do the best we can every day to staff and prepare for that, but the landscape around us may change to where we have to change our strategy or what we allow our guest experience to look like, and it may not be our vision anymore, and we have to adapt. And so I'm really curious as the next 5 to 10 years happen, what's going to happen with that.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a huge concern, and I think that it's something that we know is coming. And when you think about it as it relates to average wage, the thing I always think about, and it goes back to your earlier point about how we connect with our employees, is that we're going to have to connect in a different way with the future generations. We're going to have to connect in a way that's going to be really genuine, and it's going to be on point with what they're looking for. And we're not going to be able to manage this the way we did in the 90s and the 2000s, or even right now. Yeah. It's going to be different. Yeah. It's going to look different. And so I'm really curious about what does that look like, because I was a guest on a podcast a couple months ago, and one of the questions that came up was, how do I see technology influencing the restaurant industry? And one of the things I said, kind of what you said earlier as well, is like, I think we're missing out on an opportunity of being able to leverage technology in a way to engage our employees on a whole new level. Yeah. Like, I think we're like, whether it be, like you said, you can be in the same, you can be in different rooms across the country, and you can have kind of a town hall meeting. There's just so much we can leverage. I actually heard a great idea the other day about doing a podcast just for employees. I thought, what a great idea. So I'm curious about exactly what you said, because I think that the organizations that figure this out, that stay hungry and that stay humble, are going to be able to put together some really attractive packages for employees in the future to want to work for us.
Yeah, you mentioning how we communicate with employees and what that looks like going forward. One of the things that kind of popped into my mind was training. And, in 1993, we sat in front of the computer, we watched these painful videos that are 15 minutes long on, how to dress a hamburger bun. Oh, yeah. And now the worker of 2019, we can send them a little 3-second GIF on what it looks like to put ketchup and mustard on a hamburger bun. And that makes sense to them. They don't want to sit in front of a computer, throw on headphones for 15 minutes to learn a station. You throw a couple 3-second little videos at them and they got it. That's how they learn. That's how they want to be taught. And I think the faster we adapt some of the old thinking to what the new and future generations want or need, then we're going to be a lot better off and a lot less frustrated that you're not learning the way I learned, but that's okay.
100%. Absolutely. Well, that's some great conversation. I think we could do a whole podcast just on that question. Yeah. Like, what are you curious about right now? Right. Yeah. So, yeah. What is, in your career, you've obviously done some really amazing things, but what's something that you failed at in your career that's actually helped you become a better leader now, that's helped you become the leader you are now?
Well, I think going back to that initial, my introduction into the restaurant business, where I was a franchisee myself. It was my first experience, and seeing all of the missteps in hindsight as I transitioned out and looked back over the years, and being able to, because I did so many things during that tenure, from store management to multi-unit to site selection to real estate negotiation to, you kind of name it, and I was exposed to it during that time frame. And a lot of the decisions, looking back, a lot of the decisions were not the right ones.
Right.
And I was able to say, and from kind of the theme of this call, from a people standpoint, there were a lot of missteps looking back that if I would have done that differently, there clearly would have been a different outcome. And I'm not going to make that same mistake going forward kind of mindset.
Sure.
So that first, 6-7 years was definitely my biggest time of growth, and where I can look back and draw from mistakes made.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think that the longer we've been in the business and the more time we have to look back at those sorts of things, we have a much clearer picture now of what those things really meant and how it's helped us, right? Because I think that without having that type of experience, you wouldn't be the leader that you are today.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And in the moment, it feels catastrophic. There's some moments that I could point to where you feel like you have no idea what's coming next. And
That's right.
What do you do? And looking back on that time, it truly was my PhD in the restaurant business, of both business decisions and people decisions, and created a baseline for me to draw from on, hey, don't replicate those same mistakes. Learn from them.
That's right. That's awesome. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you? As you kind of think back over the questions and what we had a chance to speak about, is there anything that you'd like to share that I didn't ask you about?
I feel like we've had a really good conversation on kind of what and why. And to me, that's the most important thing, is the why you do what you do.
Yep.
I think, again, it drives you out of bed in the morning and keeps you up at night, and providing that opportunity for the next person in line is the why I do what I do. It's if I can help the organization get to a point where we acquire more restaurants or open more restaurants, I feel like we are providing an opportunity for somebody. We're providing a job for the general manager and 30 employees, or if we do it a couple of times, we're providing a multi-unit opportunity for somebody. And that's for me, that's the why I do what I do. That
is outstanding. That's solid gold. I think being able to connect that personally to your why is a beautiful thing. And I would agree. I think we've had a great conversation today, and I've really enjoyed it. I've got one last question for you, and I'm curious to hear your take on this. But what is the one thing that you think is not taught as much as it should be when it comes to restaurant leadership? We've talked a lot about people development, succession planning, and all those things. But what are we missing, do you think, across the industry?
For me, without a doubt, it's psychology. I think we have tons of business classes and accounting and the whys of around processes and all of those things. I was lucky enough during my college years that I took some psychology classes and found it interesting enough as to why people do what they do that I took multiple years of it. And for me today, I really draw back to some of those lessons and thought processes as I interact with people and the psychology around why people do. And that's why I'm interested in the personality traits and aspects and getting to know people, because, and I tell my multi-unit leaders, we're going to treat everyone differently, but we're going to treat everyone fair, and we're going to treat them differently because they're different people. So some people need to be led, some need to be pushed, some need to just be walked beside and say, hey, this is where we're going, and they will execute it. So because everyone's different, they require us to be different leaders